not too sure what that was, but today we're going to be learning how to varnish a painting. Now, I know there's a lot of mystery and confusion around varnishing a painting because there's lots of different information out there about it. So hopefully I can shine a light on how to do this right.
Nick, what varnish are you going to use?
So I'm going to use a Gamvar Gloss Varnish. Now this is one of my favourite varnishes to use because it's so simple. Gamblin is the company that created it, and you can use it on oil and acrylic paintings. Now I recommend getting the biggest brush you can find. I'm using a Rosemary & Co brush. It's got thick bristles, which is pretty good for varnishing a painting. I highly recommend not to pour the varnish directly onto the painting. Instead, I'm using a metal plate. You can use a ceramic plate or a cup or a mug or something like that to just pour the varnish into just a little bit before the varnish is applied to the painting. One more thing that you need is just a cloth, a paper towel, just to wipe down the artwork before you begin varnishing. What you want to make sure is that there's no dust lurking about on the surface of the painting, so then you don't get that caught within the varnish once it dries. So give it a nice wipe and you should be good to go. One huge mistake that I've done in the past is that I've added too much varnish to the painting and it's kind of left it all soggy. It doesn't dry, it doesn't work well. So what I've learnt is that you should try to use as little as possible. What I recommend doing is when you're applying the varnish to the brush, just let the brush kind of do its thing, let it soak it up, it will do it naturally, and then you can scrape off the excess on the side of the palette or whatever you're using. In this case, my metal plate, that I'm just using the sides to just get that excess varnish removed. So then the brush has the perfect amount of varnish. Now we can finally get on with varnishing the painting. It is important at this stage to take your time. Don't rush this stage as it can lead to problems in the future. You do not want to have a load of varnish on the surface of the painting. You kind of want to take your time and add as little as possible. I recommend doing this cross-hatching motion as you apply the varnish. This ensures that the surface of the painting is covered evenly. That is what your goal is. You do not want to go all in and go crazy. You're not painting, you're not applying the paint, you're varnishing. Glide the brush over in a smooth motion, and you'll find that it's quite therapeutic to just enjoy the process of applying the varnish and finishing the painting in a respectable manner. There's something so nice when you apply the varnish. It really brings out the colours and adds a slight bit of saturation and vividness to the paint. I'm sure you guys have seen that once an oil painting dries, or even an acrylic painting dries, parts of it can seem dull and it doesn't really pop the way it did as you painted it. Some parts of the surface seem a bit glossier than others, and it creates a uneven finish. So varnishing is a perfect way to get rid of that problem, ensuring a nice, smooth, consistent finish. A great tip that I highly recommend you doing while varnishing your painting is that you set up a light source that shines down on the surface. This will help when you move the angle of your head to see where exactly the varnish has been placed and where it hasn't. You can see me dipping my head down to the angle of the light to make sure I'm getting every part of the surface covered. Over the years, I have been asked when to varnish your painting, when is it okay, and it obviously depends what medium you're using. With acrylics, you don't have to wait too long. I recommend maybe a week in between painting and varnishing. And then for oil painting, the rule of thumb is that if you find the thickest part of your painting, you use your nail to drive a little dent into the paint, And if you can see the dent after, that means your painting is not quite there yet and it needs a little bit more time to cure. And this can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks and beyond, depending on how thick you paint. Personally, I like to add a little bit of thickness to my paint, but I'm also using liquid, which helps speed up the drying time of oil paint, which means I can varnish much sooner than normal. So here you can see the final result of the varnishing, and I'm really happy with how smooth it looks. There's the consistent glossy finish, which is really nice to look at certain angles, and ultimately it brings out the vibrancy of each and every colour that is on the surface of the painting. One thing that I learned recently is that you don't actually need to clean your brushes after applying Gamvar, with the idea being that the varnish evaporates over time, so you don't actually need to do anything to your brushes, which is really cool. So that's it guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have learnt something new today and that you can varnish your painting with ease. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.